Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and use the microphones because they are recording the session to put online so that other people that aren't able to attend one of the sessions. My name is Angela Pruitt, and I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer and the Chief Negotiator for the school district.
I'm Jamie Michael. I'm president of the Support Personnel Association and part of the negotiating team.
And I'm Suzanne Rudd. I was the chief negotiator on behalf of the union, and I've been with you all for many years before my retirement in September. And the new me is...
I'm Cristal Cruz. I'm the new Service Unit Director on Island Coast. It's nice to meet you.
How about Will?
And I'm Will Rothenberg. I am the Director of Compensation and Labor Relations and also on the bargaining team.
So our goal this morning is to provide you an overview of the contractual changes and then to answer any questions that you might have about the contract.
We'll start out by going over just kind of a brief PowerPoint. This also will be available online if you want to take a look at it later. To begin with, just kind of how negotiations work. So there is the SPALC and district bargaining teams have reached an agreement for a 3-year contract, and there's reopeners in the 2017-2018 school year and 2018-2019 school year. Compensation and benefits, those two articles are opened every year, so we take a look at that annually. Other articles, each side gets to pick 2 articles that they'd like to open, and generally there's some agreement about what the issues are and what it is that we need to take a look at. The school board provides bargaining authority that kind of gives us our boundaries for how much money we have to spend and what we're allowed to discuss. Contract committees work through some of the special issues that impact different groups. There's SPALC labor management, transportation labor management, there's a uniform committee, calendar committee, insurance task force, and some others that deal with specific issues. The bargaining teams then get recommendations from some of those committees that again are made up of district and SPALC employees, and work through the interest-based process to come up with consensus on what changes need to be made to the contract. And then that's all put into the tentative agreement, which is what you'll be voting on shortly. And once SPALC has voted to ratify, then it goes to the board for the board's approval, and then after that it's official. For FY17, which is the current school year, there were a number of interests. On the slide, there's a couple of the interests that SPALC and the districts absolutely share. Hiring and retaining the best talent is one of those. Doing things to increase student achievement is one of those every year. This year we were focused on improving the clarity and communication, which is one of the reasons we're having this information session and putting some of the information online. There were also some changes to make the contract a little bit more readable, which we'll go over. And then the last one, obviously, is to make sure that everyone that needs to be at the table is at the table when we're making decisions, and that we're looking at objective data rather than going off of feeling or that sort of thing. So the tentative agreement is available online, so you can review it in full there. There's the link to the website. It's also been emailed to all SPALC employees' district email accounts. In case you haven't had a chance to check, the link is also in your email. This video will be online prior to the ratification vote, and then after board approval, we'll have an FAQ and send out some communication about, so now that a change has taken place, what does that mean for me specifically? And then some questions that we anticipate, will come up. Again, like I said, clarity and communication has been a big focus this year. We want to make sure that people aren't having to work extra to find out you've got your jobs, and that's important. And we want to make it as easy as possible for you to know what's coming at you for the vote and for other things. So there's some of the changes, like I said, reorganizing the language to improve readability, making some things stand out a little bit more with article numbers and headings. And then this is probably the biggest question, and that's what are the changes to compensation? And up there on the slide, there's 4 things, and we can kind of get in depth about those and answer some questions. But there's a move to a fixed rate salary schedule, and we'll go over kind of what that means. But for any of the 30 positions that have been identified to move to that fixed rate salary schedule, which custodian, food service worker, and several maintenance positions are on that list. Any one of those positions, everyone will be receiving a 2.5% bonus one time this year, retro back to July 1st. And then for employees that are below the market rate, which we'll go over in a minute, they'll move up to the market rate. And for anyone that's already above the market rate, you'll stay at your current hourly rate. For people that are on the grade and step salary schedule, if you're at step 99, you'll get that 2.5% bonus. And if you're not at step 99, you'll get a 1-step increase. Like I mentioned, the fixed rate salary schedule, it's kind of a new concept, and so we'll take some time to explain that the best we can and answer any questions that you have. The concept behind it is hold harmless. We don't want anyone to be worse off as a result of this contract. So nobody's going to be negatively impacted by the change that's taken place this year. And the plan is to move away from a grade and step salary schedule and more towards the market rate. Since we've noticed that some individuals are currently behind the market rate, custodians, food service workers are 2 groups where there's a considerable number of people that are behind what we've determined is, the market rate if you went to take a job somewhere else doing the same thing. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping up with the times on that. We'll also be reviewing those rates annually to make sure that if there's a change and there's a sudden demand for a certain position that we're making sure we're keeping up with that, again, in order to make certain that we're retaining our best employees. The positions that are moving to the fixed rate salary schedule, it'll take a couple years for us to move everyone over to that. We've identified this year kind of the phase 1 positions, which, like I mentioned, it's there's an ALICE study that kind of says these are people that are working and having a difficult time putting together savings because their wages are, in a certain range. And so we wanted to make sure that those positions were addressed first because there's a high need there. And then also several maintenance positions, because we were in the middle of a maintenance job study, have also been identified as positions that'll be moving to the fixed rate. And the plan is to identify for future years what those positions will be kind of as we go, based again on what the need is and where we're at with some of the job studies. So more to come on that. For positions on the fixed rate salary schedule only, like I mentioned, it's a 2.5% bonus retro to July 1st if your job title is one of those that's listed. And if your hourly rate is below the market rate, you'll receive an increase to that market rate. And if it's above the market rate, you'll keep your hourly rate. We're not going to move people back down. Yeah, if you're getting paid above the market rate, you'll stay where you're at. So an example that we've got up there is the fixed rate for custodians. And so the fixed rate that we identified, and that's the market rate, $11.21 an hour. It's based on information that we obtained from ERI software, which compares the position to I think it's about 10,000 or more like positions. It uses U.S. Department of Labor statistics. It allows us to control for things like geographic location, what industry you're in, and so we were able to compare to, you know, education, public jobs in the state of Florida, and say based on kind of the factors in our state, what is a fair market rate, and that's where that number came from. And we can do more to answer any questions that you have about that. The software is pretty comprehensive and allows us to do a lot of different things to make sure that it's an objective number and a fair rate. Here's an example of how the move would look. So if you have a custodian, again, who's currently making $10.83 an hour, that person would receive that one-time bonus, and they would be increased to $11.21 an hour. If you've got someone who is making $12.09 currently, they also would get that 2.5% increase, and they would stay at $12.09 an hour. So just kind of to give you an example, based off of where some people might be currently. Like I mentioned, compensation and benefits are the two that are opened every year, so those are the two that we'll go over the most. The insurance task force recommended some changes to add critical and illness insurance and accident insurance, and also we're doing more to make sure that people are notified of what their benefits enrollment selection is, because we know that that's an important thing. You want to know who you've signed up for insurance, what they're getting, and be able to anticipate those deductions before they show up in your paycheck. Other changes, we've updated some language to make sure that we're complying with Florida statute and with some current practices district-wide. We've also improved the clarity of the contract language, like I've mentioned a couple of times. More information about that is available online if you want to look at the actual tentative agreement or the minutes from bargaining sessions. And SPALC has also prepared a summary, which I think they've distributed and can answer some questions about, that gives you kind of the rundown on all the fine details of where there were changes and little issues that might be specific to you that you've brought to their attention over the past year or so. And then I think this is maybe the last or next to last slide. Some important dates to keep in mind. The ratification vote is on February 13th, and that's Monday. Results from the vote will be counted on the 16th, and board approval is scheduled for the February 21st board meeting, which means once the ratification vote takes place, the board approves it. The changes will show up in your paycheck on the March 31st paycheck. And again, that'll give us some time to make sure we've got that frequently asked questions out. So if you have any questions about, all right, now that it's official, what does that mean for me? And we can get some communication to you also to say, specifically what can I expect to see in terms of the change. So that's it, and I'll turn it over to Jamie. And all right.
Okay, our bargaining team is made up of our vice presidents of departments. So the vice president of custodial is Rafael Cruz at Tropic Isles. We have the vice president of transportation, clerical, central services, custodial, paraprofessionals, maintenance, and I'm forgetting that seventh one all the time, food service. So every department is represented when we go to negotiations. And we talk about it considerably. We try to figure out how to get the most money for the most folks and how to be fair about it. So, Suzanne, do you have anything you want to say?
A lot of folks have asked us why we're making this change. And the change is because when you look at the salary schedule, it doesn't truly reflect where you're at on the salary schedule. For years, the steps were, we could move people along the steps and say if you were at step 15, chances were you'd had 15 years with the district. But we ran through some hard times financially. The steps, we could not move people along on the steps. And so now when people look at that step schedule, they can't tell where they're at. They make assumptions about the step schedule. And one wrong assumption is that you're going to move every year and it's going to increase. Every job, every salary increase must be specifically negotiated. And nobody automatically moves up. It must be negotiated between the school district and the union. So we wanted to come up with an honest, clear, direct way of communicating what your base pay is. And that's the reason why we've identified the fixed rate schedule, which is really one amount of money. Now, through the years, we anticipate enhancing that. For instance, a keen interest of the district is to retain employees. It's our intent that we're going to look at incentives for people who continue their employment. So perhaps we might find a benchmark at 5 years. Right now, our benchmarks for recognizing longevity begin at 15 years, and then 20 and 25. So we are going to enhance it, but right now we've got to take time, do it correctly, get everybody on the correct rate of pay. You know, years ago, and I'm going to kind of make this gender specific, a man would ask, what will you pay me for the job that I'm doing? And the employer would say, I'll pay you X amount of money. That's what we want to go to. We want to make it clear so that there's no misunderstanding. What is the going rate of pay for this job? It is not an indication of a lack of commitment by the district nor by the union. The union, we've been your representative for over 31 years. And I personally have been involved. I found my name on an old contract going back to 1987. We are not walking away from our commitment. We want to move forward, but we must be modern. In about 2002, certain politicians decided that they were going to shut down public education. And they began in incremental stages to starve public education of money. And we have, our two parties, the district and the union, have worked together through these lean times. And we have continued to raise your pay. We've continued to improve the contract language. And we're very proud of that continued commitment in the face of adversity. And what I want to thank you for being here. If you've got any questions, feel free to call us. We want to be here for you, and we hope that you will vote yes to ratify the contract on Monday.
I just want to add on to what Suzanne was saying. What also the fixed rate is going to allow us to do is keep up with the market and what the market is paying. Right now we can't do that because of how the pay structure is set up. And our goal is to continue to increase the overall fixed rate of the positions to keep up with and compete with what the market is paying. And isn't it probably one of the best examples of not only the union's commitment, but the district's commitment is if you may or may not have heard that overall the school district of Lee County received less than 1% more money this year over last year. Yet the money that the district is committing to compensation for both talc and SPALC is well above less than 1%. So I think hopefully that will illustrate to you that there is a commitment to make sure that we're making compensation in a positive direction. But as Suzanne also said, it does take time to get there. But the commitment is there to pay a fair wage.